Hey guys, welcome to season one, episode one of Personal Development Hacks. Chances are most of you have made a ton of different resolutions, goals, and promises to yourself. But be honest, how many of you have actually seen things through till the end and actually accomplished what you set out to initially? Um, we're going to discuss not only the goals, but how to go about them, what to focus on, what to avoid. So you have a chance to achieve your goals and not just set them. This is the last time you probably hear me say it, but I cannot stand the word resolutions. It depends on who you ask, but 87% of people that set a New Year's resolution have stopped within the first 3 weeks. 99% have stopped within the first 3 months. If you've been doing this for a while, if you're 35, 45 years old, chances are that you've probably fallen into that bucket. So that's what we're going to talk about today for the most part. My name's Todd, and just a little bit about me. I'm 47. I've got 2 kids, 17-year-old son, 15-year-old daughter. They're both very active baseball and softball. I live in Colorado. I love getting outside and enjoying the sunshine and going hiking and biking and boating and everything like that. The first kind of eye-opening resolution for me in terms of what I wanted to do with my life was probably about seven or 8 years ago. I was selling homes for a home builder, sitting in the garage with 3 other people, all in between appointments. And I'm sitting there in the office and watching my son's baseball game and my daughter's softball game, like a pong game on my phone, where it's just a dot that kind of goes around. And that was on a Saturday. And about halfway through the day, I realized I'm missing out. Like they're growing right in front of me, and I get to watch them through a pong game instead of actually being able to go and cheer and support and see them actually play. So Sunday I walked in the morning, and that was my last day in that. So kind of finished my real estate license from there, did that and still do that for a while. And then what led me to kind of this and thinking about the goals was in 2020. It was January, and woke up one day and getting, a normal day, just getting ready for, take my kids to school or do whatever we were doing, and took a shower and kind of looked in the mirror, and I was like, oh God, did not like what I saw. So I was like, I'm going to lose weight. My last resolution that I set lasted 2 days. Day 3, I live in Colorado. Like I said, it was cold, it was snowing, and I was like, I put in a couple days, so I don't need to do the next day. And I spent most of that day thinking about like why it was so easy for me to just give up, and why it was so easy to have such a minor roadblock kind of put in the way, that instead of finding an adjustment and something else to do, I was just like, I'm going to stay home. So started kind of thinking through like not just what I was doing, but most importantly was why I was doing it. And ultimately it led to my kids. I didn't want to be the dad that had to sit on the sidelines and just watch because I couldn't play catch with my son or my daughter, or couldn't go play golf, or I wanted to go hiking and show them all the wonders that the state offers and be active, to live a long life as long as possible, um, in good shape and showing them what it was all about. So that's kind of where that led me, kind of to this path. So starting with goals. There's a ton of different people out there just like me. Um, and they'll talk to you about all sorts of different stuff in terms of how to set goals and what you need to do and how many steps in the process. And if you do this, this, and this, and you'll get to the end. And honestly, I think they're kind of wrong because in the end, all of those, well, not all, but most of those, they focus on the goal and they focus on the steps that it takes to get to that ultimate goal. What I really think you should be focused on is why you're doing what you're doing and ultimately what success looks like for you. We could have 20 different people and all of them say, I want to get fit. And the level of fitness between those 20 people is going to vary differently. So you got to know what success actually looks like so that you know and you can celebrate when you get to that point. It is a mindset change. It is kind of not paying attention as much to what you're doing, but why you're doing it. And like I said, it's focused on why, and that's, it's a different kind of way of saying it. Like if your goal is to, if you're used to saying, I want to lose 15 pounds, and that's your goal for 2023. Well, all I'm saying is instead of saying, I want to lose 15 pounds, why don't you just look at it and say, I want to get fit? Because at pound 15, if you get to pound 15, what happens next? Do you want to maintain it? Do you want to lose more weight? Do you kind of recycle or reset? Or do you, unfortunately, like a lot of people do, they hit that number and then they spend the rest of the year and the holidays and whatever eating. And then the next year they repeat the same cycle again. So it's just reframing it in terms of, I want to lose weight. Look at it in terms of, I want to get fit. And let's face it, most people, when we're talking about goals, it's going to be one of three things. It's going to be health, wealth, and relationships. Those are the three things that probably equate to 98% of the people's goals out there, or some iteration thereof. So if it's wealth, instead of saying, I want to make 10% more this year, why don't you say, I want to, gain a certain amount of freedom in my schedule, or I want to have additional investments, or I want to get passive income streams or something like that. Because let's face it, the most wealthy, successful people in the world, and not even in the world, but even like the people that are doing really well for themselves, they probably didn't save their way to the wealth that they've attained. They've got a lot of different things that are going on that just attract more. So if it's relationships, instead of saying, I want to have dinner with my kids and sit down once a week and discuss X, Y, and Z, that's great. But why don't you just talk about, what you want to learn about them, or what you want them to know about you, or your spouse or significant other? You can do the same thing with them. Like, you want to learn something each and every day, each and every week, something new. And it'll take some time to get used to, because you're going to be vulnerable, sharing some of that information, and they'll feel that as well. But the more committed you are to it, and most importantly, is you're telling them why you're doing it. That's where you're going to really start to make huge strides, is because everyone's involved, and it's for the health and the well-being of everyone that you're dealing with. So with the goals, when you do set out to kind of step on this process, if you're watching this, either on one of the Roku or Apple TV or something like that, or if you're catching it after the fact or you're streaming it, you've already taken the first step, which is realizing that you want more out of life, and there's got to be a different way than you've been doing it to do it to gain the success that you're looking for. So when you first start looking at this, write your goals down, but write them down and think about things that will impact your life in a positive way, that will impact your family, your friends, your relationships, everything for the lifetime in a big positive way. That's why those short term, I'll lose 10 pounds. Let's face it, that's why a lot of times people, they struggle with it, is because it's too small a goal, it's too short term, and they hit it and then they're done. So think, what is going to impact me into my 50s, into my 60s, into my 70s. There was a study done by New England Journal of Medicine or something that said the most productive decade in a human's life is between the ages of 60 and 69. The second most productive decade of a human's life is between 70 and 79. And the third is between 50 and 59. So I look at it and I say, I'm 47. I still got at least three decades ahead of me that are going to be the best of my life because of all the things that I'm doing now. Okay. Don't be afraid to set your goals big. Don't shy away from, reaching for as high as you want. The higher you go, it might take longer, and that's fine. But don't be afraid to set a big goal, knowing that you're going to take those steps along the way, and you're going to build those building blocks as you go. Think of it like a step ladder, right? If your goal is all the way at the top of a 12-foot roof, you're not going to jump up there in one jump, but you're going to take those steps and you're going to make progress, and it's going to you're going to start to feel a lot better about the steps that you're taking, because you still got your eye on that big ultimate goal instead of something that's right in front of you. Okay. Once you do set your goal, whatever it is, involve all the people that went into your decision, and especially when you think about like why it's important to you. If it's your kids and the relationship, involve them in it and tell them, hey, I'm going to do this and this is why. Or if it's wealth, it's not for a number. Tell them it's like you want some freedom of schedule so that you can go on vacations to, other parts of the country or other countries, or for longer periods of time. If it's a relationship, with your spouse or significant other, obviously involve them in it and say, look, I want to recover that feeling that we had when we met, when we dated, when I proposed, when we got married, whatever ultimately it is. I want to get rekindled back to that. And this is what I'm going to do about it. And this is why it's important to me. Okay. Um, there's a few things that hold most people back from really, really going after and hitting those ultimate big goals. Um, the first being their goals aren't big enough. Um, they're thinking of something like, I want to make 5% more this year, or I want to go on one date a quarter with just my spouse and I, or my significant other and I, or I want to lose 15 pounds so I can fit into that one pair of pants. That's not big enough. It's like you gotta think longer term. It's not short time, it's a lifetime that you're starting to do these building blocks for. Second reason is it's very short sighted, their goals, and they're just comfortable. Either they lack motivation, they are good with where they're at, they look at their parents and say, well, my parents did X, Y, and Z, and they were fine. So why should I expect to do anything more? So they settle into their comfort zone, and every day just starts to become deja vu, right? I mean, we've all had the feeling where you wake up one day and it's like, this is the same as yesterday. It was the same as the day before. Weekends come and it's like Friday night, you're just waiting for that, 5 o'clock on Friday because you get to relax and you get to sit around or do yard work or stuff like that, which is all great. But if that's your comfort zone, is that all you want, or do you want other stuff? Do you find yourself looking at, personal development books or, travel magazines, or, looking online at destinations and stuff like that you've seen on, a show, or God, that'd be cool to see, or man, I wish we could go there. Well, if you see something and it really strikes you as something that you want to do, maybe it's worth kind of having that as a longer term goal, or the next goal after you get to this first one. It's always just a process. Okay. The third one is fear of failure. People are scared to do something different because they think to themselves, well, what if I don't make it? What if I'm not able to get to where I need to be? And what if I fall short of that goal? And so instead of saying, forget it, I'm still going to do this and I'm going to go as far as I can and I'm going to adjust along the way, they look at it and say, well, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. So I'm not going to do anything. And that's unfortunately a place that a lot of people live, is that, the fear of not succeeding what they initially set out to paralyzes them. And they just sit on their hands and think, well, I'm not going to try anything new, stuff like that. It's kind of like, you would rather be like my business, okay, online coaching. I would rather launch an imperfect product faster than wait for all the moons to come together and the stars to align and, the perfect time of year and, every messaging is perfect and then launch. Because if that's what you're waiting for, one, it's never going to happen. And two, ultimately, if you get to a point where you're like, God, I'm 90% there, I'm just going to go. Well, 100 people just blew past you because they took something that was imperfect, but they had the passion to chase it and to go after it. And they just ran past, and they're adjusting as they're succeeding. while you're making adjustments and you haven't even launched anything yet. Same thing with, you know, health, wealth, or relationships. Go, even if it's not perfect, go. Just, you got to start somewhere. The last reason that a good number of people don't start their goals is actually fear of success. And it's kind of a quandary, but people sometimes look at it and they say, well, God, if I do that, am, you know, am I going to alienate all my friends and the relationships that I've, developed? Am I going to now have more expectations put on me? What's this person going to think? What's this person going to think? What's my parents going to say? If they're anything like my parents, it's like, oh God, you're taking a risk. And I'm like, yeah, it is a risk, but it's something that I truly believe in. And so if you believe in it, don't fear success. Fear that once you get to that success and you've identified what your success is, now your fear becomes, okay, I want more. I want to see what's beyond. I want to see what's over the top of the next hill. I've come this far and I want to now go further with it and see what that does. Okay. Along with that, something to keep in mind, like we talked about the ladder. One of the fear of failures is that as you make those steps going up that ladder, that if you fail or you fall short, you got all this way now that you got to fall. Not necessarily true. Think of it like as you go up a step on that ladder, the floor comes up beneath you. So if you have to adjust or you fall short of something, it's just a step back, an adjustment, and then you start again. So as you go higher, the floor is following you up. Okay. It's not that far of a fall because you've done it right. You're doing it for the right reasons, for the right people. And you have that true belief with you that now I'm doing this right, and that floor will come up to meet you. Okay. We talked a little bit about adjustments. Got a guy I went to networking with. He always said that think of life like a flight from LA to Miami. And if you think about it, there's only 2 times in that flight when that plane is actually going straight. It's takeoff and it's landing. He's like, the rest of the time, those pilots aren't flying the plane necessarily. All they're doing is making course corrections. If it's a heavy wind coming out of the north, well, they're having to compensate. If it's the other way, they got to compensate. It's the same thing that with, going through and setting goals. There's going to be things that are going to come up. And we'll get into that in future shows as far as how to adjust for those things that we know are going to be out there, and have a plan before they happen as to how you're going to course correct to put yourself back where you're wanting to go, which is up and which is forward. Okay. The last thing that I think that really anyone wants, for the most part, I mean, if, we all love our parents, obviously, and everything, but I know for me, I don't want to look back at, when I'm getting close to the end and look back and say, I lived my parents' life. Because my parents, they didn't look back, and they can honestly look back and say, well, I didn't live my grandparents' life. They lived differently. They moved from, upstate New York out to Colorado. you know, my mom, dad, my brother, and myself, and did something new and went into a different field and really branched out. So they definitely made that, but I don't want to look back and say, God, I basically just, all the lessons that my parents taught me growing up, I basically adhered strictly to them, and I got exactly what they got out of their life. And we all love them and they've all had their success, but as humans and as part of human nature, we want to stretch further. We all, you know, that's progress, right? We want a little bit more. We want a little bit more. We want a little bit more. Okay. Um, as I'm going through this, guys, if you like what you're hearing, we do have a program. I just brought that up right below there. So if you go to go.project9life.com, you'll get a little bit more information. And we do offer a couple different coaching programs that go a lot more in depth into, you know, all this stuff. And it becomes a little bit more personal to you guys in terms of what is your goal, what is your roadblock, what is your path through everything. And give you that support that many of us need. One of the biggest things is as we go through this, wise man said, you know, when was the best time to plant a tree? The answer is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. So don't wait. There is no such thing as the perfect time to start, the perfect time to kind of get going on something or anything like that. It's just start. Just go and start doing something. It always starts, and you know, you'll see as we go through everything, especially if you get into the program, is there is power in writing stuff down. Okay. Write down your goal and think about like what's important to you. Why is it important to you? Who else is it important to? What impact does it have on them? And what support necessarily do you need to be able to get from where you're starting right now through till the end, when you say this is what success looks like and you get it. The cool thing about this, and I've seen it with a number of clients that have gone through the program successfully and really kind of, you know, they did what they wanted to and they bought into it and they started making progress and they started going and they started doing and achieving these things. Is it becomes addictive, right? It becomes, I've come this far and now I can go this much further. And then, okay, now I've come this far. How much further can I go? Think of it like you're, you know, hiking around in the mountains somewhere and there's a, you know, path that goes up to what looks like the top of a hill. When you get to the top of that, if you look out and you just see more and more peaks out there, if you're truly bought in and you're really wanting more out of life, those other peaks are not obstacles. They're opportunities, right? It's like, instead of saying, oh God, I got to go over here now, I got to do this now, more of it is, ooh, cool, I'm going to go do that. Oh, that's great, I'm going to go do that. I wonder what that one is. I'm going to go do that. And what you're going to find is as you start making progress, and this is coming from personal experience, when I kind of said, you know what, no, I'm going to get fit, literally, I did nothing special. I eliminated a lot of carbs and added sugars, and I just started walking every single day. And it was just, I'd walk and I'd walk and I'd walk. It started off with like a mile and a half, and then it was two, and then it was like, okay, this loops around back here. I'm going to go do that. That turned into three, and then three and a half. But as I was going through that process, and the byproduct of me saying I'm going to get fit was I was actually losing weight, which very proud to say I've kept off. I lost 100 pounds over the course of a year. I've kept that off, and I still walk every single day. Um, but what I found was when I first started, my family, my friends, my parents, they would ask me, "Oh, you're looking good. You're still doing this. Um, how much have you lost?" Or things like that. Like it was something I was doing, and then about halfway through, I noticed those questions didn't come anymore because I had done it for long enough, showed my commitment, and told them what I was doing and why. And I showed I was getting fit and I was getting smaller, thinner, I should say. Um, that it, they looked at it and they stopped asking the questions because it wasn't what I was doing anymore. It was now who I was. The same thing will happen for you guys. If you set a goal out for wealth, and you want to, your goal is to take another 25 grand a year, and that's your goal, and you're going to take that and you're going to turn it into this. Um, a very important question to ask yourself in terms of if your main goal is on like making more money. Again, don't think about it in making more, think about it in gaining wealth, but also think about, okay, when I do start to hit some of these levels that are affording more and more things, what are you going to do with it? Like, are you going to take it and put it in a savings account, take it, put it in the stock market? Are you going to take it and turn it into investing in something that'll create some passive income? Or are you going to take a good amount of it and say, you know what, I'm going to take half of this and I'm going to take the family on a week-long vacation to someplace in the Bahamas or something like that. Or I'm going to take my wife to Rome and Paris or something like that. So that goal, it becomes kind of two parts, right? It's not just the amount that you're talking about, but it's ultimately then you got to start thinking about, well, what am I going to do with this? And that's something that you can share with your kids and with your significant other is, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is why. My idea is, I'm going to take half of whatever it is and I'm going to look at some passive income options that's going to create even more money. Plus, I'm going to take, this amount. And I was thinking about a family vacation. What do you guys think? And get ideas. Depending on the age of your kids, they still get excited to go and see different places and experience different things. And you'll learn a lot about them just by seeing what they're actually interested in, learning about what they want to do. Do they want to go and experience culture? So, like, you go into like Western Europe and England and stuff like that, or are they? I just want for me, I mean, living in Colorado, my kids just want to go to the beach. Um, they want to go and swim around with whatever fish and clear water and, put their toes in the sand and drink their fake daiquiris or whatever. Um, but you learn a lot about them by figuring out and sharing with them, this is my thought. What do you guys think about it? And come up with the plan together. And you'll find they'll start asking about it more and more and more. Okay. One of the biggest things, guys, with this whole thing is all this stuff that we've talked about, the goals and making adjustments and not waiting, just getting started, and sharing with your friends and family and loved ones what you're doing, why you're doing it, what's important about it, everything like that. In the end, ultimately, what you're doing is you're establishing a new norm for yourself, just a new level of normal. So don't think about it, in terms of that fear of success. Don't think about it in terms of, well, but I'm going to alienate, these people maybe, or my relationships are going to be different, or more is going to be expected of me. That may or may not be true. And that's something to where if, as you're going through this and you're kind of making progress and you're achieving these things that you're setting out to, you might have some relationships that don't go necessarily the way that you want. They'll try and pull you back down instead of jumping on the ladder with you and saying, hey, what are you doing? Because I want to do what you're doing because you're crushing it. Like, you told me that you have, your job and you took the bonus and now you've got a passive income stream. And I heard you and the family are going to, Cancun for a week or something like that, or, go see the Mayan ruins or whatever it is. Okay. But it's just, you're establishing a new level of normal. It's what you expect of yourself and ultimately what others are going to start expecting of you. And that's not something to shy away from. That's not something to kind of be like, ooh, I don't know about if I want that. That is something to truly relish, is that, people around you and people that are closest to you that start to notice the things that you're doing. You're going to find a lot of people will ask, like, what are you doing? And how are you doing this? And what exactly do we got going on here that is doing all this? How did you do this? And it's just a new level of normal for yourself. Okay. All right. So we've got about 20 minutes left. So in the end, I said there's a lot of different coaches out there with a lot of different programs, stuff like that. One thing to keep in mind, Dean Graziosi said this, is like a coach, if you think about it like a you. And if you get a client and this is their mess, this is whatever they're dealing with, their pain has reached a certain level where they're at a breaking point, or the promise of what is out there in the future is, so great that they got to do something. Well, the way that just psychology and humans work is when you have this mess, either pain or pleasure, you tend to get angry, you get upset, you blame others, you find excuses as to why stuff happened. And then you start to get to the bottom, and it's like you start to understand what's going on. You start putting, have an idea of how you can get away from your mess. You can start to think about like putting a plan together. And then on the way up, you're like, okay, I've got a plan now. And now I'm doing something about it. And, now I need some accountability. And then ultimately it's the end point, and you're like, all right, I've gotten through that. The biggest difference, guys, between a coach and a counselor is, how do I do this? Yeah, there you go. A counselor, they're going to walk through all of this with you. They're going to just be there for support. They're going to be there to help you kind of recognize all these points and everything like that and see you through to the end. Okay. A coach, what we are is a bridge. So we are the bridge that goes from A, which is your mess, as quickly, easily, and painlessly to your success, because you're going to learn from all the stuff that I've gone through, that others have gone through, that I've read about or other people have read about. And it's, some of the, Tony Robbins will say it, or Grant Cardone will say it, or any of these guys, they'll all talk about, hey, don't make my mistakes. Learn from my mistakes and don't make them again. Well, that's exactly it. That's why you want someone that's been through some stuff or helped people through stuff or has a system that gets you from mess to success the quickest and the easiest with the least pain. That's what a coach does, is we give you a playbook, and I'm going to, I'll tell you what you're going to face all the way through, but I'm not going to walk through everything with you. I'm going to talk about it. We'll hit on it, and then we can move past it and get you to the end point, which is ultimately where you want to be. Okay. But with that, kind of going from your mess to, ultimately where you want to go, there's a lot of different steps. And like I said, all these coaches, and they all got these different things. Our paperwork that you'll get as part of our program, there's 4 steps. That's it. Only 4. Step 1 is what, which is your goal. And that's where you're going to be as detailed as possible, thinking about what the goal is, why it's important, who it's important to. Is it a short term or is this a lifetime kind of commitment? What's the benefit I'm going to get out of this, until you craft that goal? Then step 2 is you're going to ask yourself why, at least 7 times. If you say, I want to get fit because I want to feel better. Okay, well, why do you want to feel better? And just keep digging in until ultimately what you might ultimately find is the reason that became your goal has nothing to do with your fitness or your weight or whatever. It might have something to do with something completely different that you'll never find. Okay. But that's the difference between motivation and inspiration. Think of motivation is, everyone's got it. The calendar with a daily motivational quote, or, it's on a website, or you get an email or something like that. And I'll give you a perfect example. Those motivations can be motivational, but only for the day, because it'll change the next day. And sometimes it's completely the opposite. So a while back, I saw one that came out, and it was a picture, had some quote on there about something. Honestly, I didn't even read it because of the picture. Picture was this huge fjord, like in Norway. Mountains are just bright green, and the water is crystal blue. And it's like, got the big boulder that kind of juts out. there's nothing below it but like 3,000 feet of air. And there's a couple people that are just sitting out there, like standing up and arms raised. And, then there's the quote, did nothing for me because I'm afraid of heights. So I looked at that. I didn't, like I said, I didn't even read the quote. I was just like, nope, not going to do that. So that's the difference between your inspiration and your motivation. Your motivation ultimately, or your inspiration, is going to be a lot more near and dear to your heart, to your true reasoning, to yourself, and those important to you in your life. And if you think about it, if you see something that is non-motivational, you might give up on a day. But that same day comes, and if you're not looking at motivation, but you're looking at your kids who you're doing all this for, and they're looking at you going, hey, are you going to do whatever it is that you said you're going to do today? Trust me, you're not going to let them down, and you're not going to fail your inspiration, what inspires you. Okay. So step 2 is why. That's where you're going to ask those questions and go through it. Step 3 is why not. Why not is basically looking at it and saying, what's prevented me from doing this in the past? What roadblocks have I hit that caused me to stop in the past? I'm trying something new. Well, what do I foresee as potential roadblocks that could hinder me in the future as I go through this? And then coming up with a game plan as to, okay, when these things happen, like let's say, like for me, one of the roadblocks for me was bad weather. Well, I live in a part of town, fortunately, where I've got a few different rec centers that I've got access to. So as soon as I started, I was like, look, if it's crappy, I can go to the gym and walk around the track and get my distance in and feel better, because I took that what could be a roadblock and I just found a different way to do it. It might be more difficult if it's something that you haven't tried before. I've said passive income a few different times. If you don't know how to do it or where to look or even what that's considered, there's a ton of resources out there, a ton of experts out there who have made their living basically by setting themselves up to where everything is automated. They did a lot of work up front, but everything is automated. And every morning they wake up and there's just more money. And they didn't do anything. Okay. It's truly passive. But if that's where you're at, let me know. I mean, I've got people that I know, and I can at least get you pointed in a direction that could be potential. If it's not for you, then it's not for you. But there are different options out there. Okay. And then finally, the last one is what's next. So this is where about halfway through your journey, when people stop asking you what you're doing because you've established a new norm for yourself. And it's addictive. You're like, I need something else. Well, that's where you're going to take your what's next. Like, okay, I've got, a great relationship with my kids and my significant other. And, we sit down, we do this, or we do this, or we go on vacations, or, I know what they like, why they like it, and all this stuff. Okay, well, what else? Is it fitness? Is it wealth? Is it vacations? It doesn't matter. But you're going to find a new aiming point, and then you're just going to go back and repeat the process over again. You're going to start with the goal. You're going to write that out. You're going to think about what the impact is long term for your lifetime, not a short time. You're going to go through why. You're going to ask yourself those questions again. Why is this important and who is this important to? You're going to ask why not. And then once you get through that, about halfway, and now you're like, okay, I've got this and this, you're going to go to, okay, what's next? There's always next. You should always strive to see beyond and want to know what's beyond. I think Ryan Blair said it, the higher you go, the farther you see. And that's absolutely true. I mean, as you ascend your goal and you start to achieve and it starts to become more you, and you, there's opportunities that are going to start to open themselves up that you might not have been aware of or you weren't on the lookout for until you started to get to that point. You'll find that when you start doing that, because like we all have the friends, right? Those people that are like, God, that guy's always got something going, or God, she's involved in basically everything. The main reason for that is because they focused on themselves and their goal and achieving everything that they could with it. And as they did, it's the law of attraction. The higher you go, the more stuff comes to you. Then the higher you go, the more stuff comes to you. There's a reason that the people that are worth all this money and have attained all this wealth and stuff like that, they keep attaining and getting more and more and more. It's because they attract it. People look for it. They're like, they're doing something right. They're doing something right. I need to be a part of this. What are they doing? I need to pick their brain. I need to figure out what's right and what they're doing about all this stuff. Okay. The biggest thing, guys, is don't wait. Start the process. You don't need a worksheet to be able to do it. Like I said, if you like this and you do want to become part of a program, they are group coached. So you've got not only my support, but also have a group, and that group continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And there will be people that are doing different things than you. And who knows, you might find out one of those opportunities that you've been looking for is someone that's basically on the same call that has just a different goal in mind that they're looking for. But if that's what interests you, go here, go.project9life.com, and just check it out and see what you think. And, we'd love to be of service to you guys. That's the whole reason that I do what I do is to serve others. It's worked for me, and I think it works for a lot of people. Thinking differently, shifting your focus differently, just changing your kind of how you look at goals and achieving. Okay. The process that we present you with is very easy. Okay. Or simple. It's very simple. It's not easy. It's simple because it needs to be, right? Like you don't need to be bogged down with 50 steps. So it's simple, but it's not easy. It is going to require work depending on what exactly your goals are. Okay. So, other than that, guys, next broadcast will be Thursday at the same time, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And next time we'll talk more about why. And if you guys are out there and you have anything to add or you have some success stories, go to goproject9life.com and check us out. and send me a note. And, I can have you on as a guest and you can share your success or kind of where you're at. So until then, thanks you guys so much.